Bishop!
What would you like to discuss this day?
I think I want to start with a question. Like someone somewhere taught me that being happy is not okay.
Well, do you agree with that assessment?
I don't. I logically try to tell myself no, but somewhere deep inside, there is a sense of guilt.
About what? About what?
Well,
Guilt about what?
About other people suffering and leaving them behind.
Oh, so you think that if you suffer, you're helping them? All you're doing is matching the vibration of their suffering and adding to the suffering of the world. How does that help them? Why not be a living example of a happy person who has risen above the idea of guilt and suffering, so you can act as a living example to them that it's possible for them to do so too? How can you help them lift themselves up if you're not willing to lift yourself up and be a living example to them that it can be done?
Yes, and I don't know how to relate to that concept of not close my eye on suffering and yet yet allow myself to be joyful, right? It's almost like to be happy, I have to ignore, I have to in some way close myself off from the suffering around.
You can be compassionate about the idea that other people may be choosing to experience the idea you call suffering. And again, also do remember, people lay out their life paths, and sometimes a soul may choose to experience something like that because when they can learn to transform it, it will accelerate them much faster than if they didn't experience it at all. So it depends on how you're looking at what it is they're experiencing, and understand that they have the self-empowerment to choose that and the self-empowerment to change that, but they're not necessarily going to know they can change it if you don't at least help them with an example that it can be changed. You don't have to shut yourself off from it. You just have to observe it with compassion, in the same way that you would look at a child who hasn't yet learned how to do a certain thing. You're not, in a sense, taking on what the child is also going through, but you are an adult that is looking at the child in a way that tells you that the child needs to learn something, learn a lesson that you are capable of teaching them, so that they can do something in a different way that is more beneficial to them. You don't have to look at the lack of information that the child has as something that should bring you down. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to help the child. So it's not about cutting yourself off. It's about looking at what they're going through from a higher perspective of understanding that every soul has made a choice, and that you have to validate that they're in control of making that choice, whether it's positive or negative, in order to give them the ability to make a different choice. Do you understand what we're saying?
Yes, and I'm trying, and there's a disconnect for me internally. I don't know how to frame or look at experiences. I was brought up in Poland with a lot of concentration camps and things happening.
All right, let me put it this way. When certain events happen that obviously are perpetuated by a lot of fear and negativity, the idea is that sometimes souls will choose to go through those kinds of events because they know, ultimately, as souls, they have seen that if enough of those kinds of negative events occur, eventually humanity will figure out how to make sure those kinds of events never happen again. So a soul may choose to go through all sorts of struggle and strife and negativity as an experience to help teach humanity how to deal with that, how to make sure within itself that it changes itself in a way to make sure that those kinds of things don't need to happen in the future in order for humans to learn the lessons they need to learn.
Yeah.
So if you look at it that way, then you are understanding how to express the power of the soul that is eternal and infinite, and experiencing a temporary experience of what you relate to as suffering that will actually ultimately benefit humanity in the long run, if you look at it that way, doesn't excuse the suffering, doesn't excuse the perpetration of suffering, but it gives you an understanding of how suffering can be used to eliminate suffering eventually, when humanity finally understands how to change itself in a way that makes it unnecessary for you to learn lessons by experiencing suffering. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So starting to look at it that way will help you in relating to other people and not feeling guilty about rising yourself up, because rising yourself up is, as I said, one of the things that will help humanity understand there may be another way to experience the lessons that they're learning in their lives.
Yeah. How do I, as an individual, relate? I don't want to say word responsibility, but it feels like there is some kind of a social, energetic, human responsibility to define myself around a situation like that.
Yes. You have a responsibility to them to be yourself. You don't have a responsibility for them. Do you understand the difference? You are not responsible for someone. You are responsible to them to show them other options, other choices that you have discovered that can help them. Not that they have to take it, because what they do with what you share with them is none of your business. You don't know their life path. You don't know what they're learning in the way that they're learning it. But you give them the option to learn it in a different way, to transform it, to learn the lesson more quickly. You give them that option, but you're not responsible for what they decide to choose. You can't take their power away from them to choose even a negative thing. You have to let them decide what is true for them, but you give them the opportunity to see that there is a more positive choice. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
And that's enough.
Yeah.
That's enough. That's what you have to wrap your mind around. That's enough.
Yeah, yes, I will sit with that. There's something in me that feels like I need to do something, but it's a more of a bigger thing for me, that I need to do something about the world, about suffering of the world.
But that's what I'm saying. What you do is you put it out in whatever way works for you, acting on your passion, that there are more ways of doing things that are more constructive and positive than the way that they're choosing to do things. So you tap into your imagination and your creativity. You say, I'm going to write a book, or I'm going to do lectures, or I'm going to channel, or I'm going to teach, or whatever it is that is the way and method that you can share the perspectives and ideas with others who are willing to listen, who are willing to change themselves, who don't have to, but are willing to look at what you have to say that might help them somehow, someday, in some way. You put it out there in a way that works for you, and you know that the people that you need to reach will be reached. If there are people who simply refuse to be reached, you're never going to reach them anyway. And you have to let it be okay that they're on their path, choosing even the idea of suffering, because you don't know why they're choosing that. And you don't know what they're getting out of it. So you have to let that be okay. If they're refusing to change themselves, you have to honor their choices. You cannot invalidate their choice. You can only share with them that there is another choice. If they take it, they take it. If they don't, they don't. It's none of your business what they do with it. That's how you help. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think you're meaning also not just the victims, but also perpetrators, just to call them kind of so clearly, that not just the victims, but the perpetrators.
A perpetrator is a victim. It takes a victim to make a perpetrator, because a perpetrator has been victimized and therefore doesn't know how to deal with it, and out of fear will start to victimize others because they don't want to feel alone. But a perpetrator is also, and also has been, a victim. So it's all the same. So the idea is it doesn't excuse the perpetration because it's up to them to find ways to rise above their victimhood and not be a perpetrator of more victimization. Because that's all simply about a feeling of lack of control, lack of empowerment, all those things. People's reactions to it can cause either victims or perpetrators, but they both come from the same camp. They're both involved in the idea of fear, of feelings of disconnection, feelings of disempowerment, feelings of being unloved, feelings of being unworthy. It's just that one withdraws and one acts out, but they're from the same energy.
Okay, yes. And as you're saying that, I can feel my inner dynamic of the victim and perpetrator inside me. So I think that's something also that exists. And
yes, so it gives you an understanding of those people. So again, you look at them as children that have simply never learned the lesson that would help them. So help them by sharing the lessons that they can use to help themselves rise out of that pool of victimization.
Yeah, it's the lesson I haven't learned myself yet, I think.
But you can, unless you enjoy continuing to be a victim yourself because you believe you're getting some benefit out of it.
Yeah, the drama of that for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A victim sometimes will choose to remain a victim because they get to say, oh, I'm getting all the attention now because I am playing the victim, where I couldn't get attention before because I believe I'm unworthy of that attention. I'm undeserving of that attention. But if I play the victim, oh, look at all the sympathy that I get from everyone. Look at all the attention I get from everyone. So they continue to play the victim because it's the only way they've ever learned to get attention and feel worthy of other people's attention.
Yeah,
but that's not beneficial to a person. It only keeps them down in a lower vibration of victimization.
Yeah, totally understand. And I dive in with you. I know we're out of time right now, so I thank you so deeply for all that. And I think that the conversation around disempowerment and the true empowerment is something that's really important, for not just for me, but
Absolutely. Because again, remember, even if you feel like you're out of control, you're controlling that. So you're never actually out of control. You're never actually disempowered. If you were disempowered, you wouldn't be capable of creating any experiences at all. You can't be disconnected from your power, but you can use your power to create the illusion that you are disempowered. But that's what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we thank you for the co-creation.